Zechia Umatana, Chapter 4. 1. Once a person acquires the gift, he cannot nullify his acquisition. To cite an example, a person received the gift and acquired after it entered his domain. While he remained silent, he retracted and said, "I do not desire it. It is nullified, or I see this blemish in it." His statements are of no consequence. Just as the giver cannot retract, so too the recipient cannot retract once he has acquired the gift that the recipient said he did not desire after it entered into his possession becomes ownerless. The first person to take possession of it acquires it, for the recipient declared it ownerless after he acquired it. If, however, the recipient protested from the very outset, he does not acquire it, and it should be returned to its original owners too. The following was applied when a person transfers ownership over an article to a colleague through the agency of a third party. Once the third party takes possession of it, e.g. he performs mashiach on movable property, a deed of transfer of landed property reaches his hand, or he manifests ownership over the land, his colleague acquires the gift. Even though it does not reach his hand, the giver can no longer retract. The recipient, by contrast, has the option in his hand. If he desires, he may accept it. If he does not desire, he may not accept it. He need not accept it. For a positive acquisition may be made for a person without his consent, and an obligation cannot be undertaken on his behalf without his consent. If a person desires that a gift be given to him, it is considered to be a positive acquisition. If, however, he does not desire it, the person cannot be forced to accept the gift that is given to him. 3. There is an unresolved doubt among our sages whether when another person accepts a gift on behalf of the recipient, when the recipient hears about the gift and remains sound, and afterwards he protests and states that he does not desire to receive. We do not know whether the reason he remained sound at first is that he desired to accept, and the reason he protested was that he retracted, or perhaps he remained sound at the outset because nothing had reached his hand at that time. When the article did reach his hand, he protested, and his ultimate statements reveal his original intent. Therefore, if another person comes first and acquires the article himself, it should not be expropriated from his possession, for perhaps the recipient originally acquired the article when he said it did not desire it, he declared it ownerless as explained above. Thus, the person who came back and took possession of it while it was ownerless acquires it. If, however, the original owner comes and takes the article out of the possession of the person who took it, it should not be expropriated from his possession. Perhaps the recipient did not acquire it, for he said it did not desire it, the ultimate statements reveal his original intent. Thus, the person who took possession of it did not acquire it and remained in the possession of the original owner. 4. The above principles can be applied to the following situation. Reuven desired to give 100 denarim to Shimon. He sent him the 100 denarim with Levi. If Reuven told Levi, acquire these 100 zuz on behalf of Shimon, or give these 100 zuz to Shimon, Reuven cannot retract his gift. If, however, he tells him, bring these 100 zuz to Shimon, he has the option of retracting until the 100 zuz reach Shimon. 5. In the above instance, if Levi took the 100 zuz that he was sent to bring to Shimon and looked for Shimon but could not find him, he should return the money to Reuven. If Shimon died during Reuven's lifetime, Reuven should return the money to Reuven or to his heirs. But if Reuven died in Shimon's lifetime, the 100 zuz should be given to Shimon or his heirs. The rationale is that the mitzvah to carry out the instructions of a deceased person, even though he gave these instructions while he was healthy. And in this instance, the 100 zuz are still in the possession of the agent. 6. A person cannot acquire a gift on behalf of a colleague unless the person acquiring the gift is past majority and mentally competent, both a man and a woman. Indeed, even a married woman or a servant or maid can acquire property on behalf of another person. A gentleman contract cannot acquire property for a Jew since he is not fit to serve as an agent. He can never acquire property on behalf of a Jew. Similarly, just as the Jew cannot serve as agent for a Gentile, he cannot acquire property for a Gentile. 7. When a child reaches a state of understanding that when he's given a stone, he throws it away, but when he's given a nut, he keeps it, and he can acquire property on his own behalf. But he cannot acquire on behalf of others. If he is less mature than this, he cannot even acquire property on his own behalf. Similarly, a mentally or emotionally incompetent person cannot acquire property neither in his own behalf nor behalf of others. When a person gives property to a mentally or emotionally incompetent person through the agency of a mentally competent person, the incompetent person acquires it. If you can acquire property on his own behalf, as explained in Hillchos Gzela 8, one may acquire property from a minor, even a newborn child or an adult in his presence or outside his presence. A person's court can acquire property on his behalf even though he is not standing there. The rationale is since the gift reached the person's court, it is as if another person acquired it on his behalf. 9. When does the above apply with regard to a court that is safeguarded? Different rules apply with regard to a court that is not safeguarded. E.g., a field or ruin. In such an instance, the person does not acquire the article unless he is standing next to the courtyard and says, "Let my field acquire the article for me." Similarly, an area within the radius of 4 cubits next to where a person is standing can acquire property on his behalf if he is standing in an alleyway at the sides of the public domain, which is not crowded with many people or in a field that is ownerless. However, when a person stands in the public domain or a field belonging to a colleague, he does not acquire the article until it reaches his hand. A female minor may acquire an article by virtue of her presence in her courtyard, or its presence within her courtyard, or within the area within a 4-cubit radius of her. A male minor, by contrast, cannot acquire a gift unless it reaches his hand or is acquired on his behalf by another person. 10. A gift is like a bill of divorce in that a person cannot transfer words alone to an agent. What is implied? A person tells 3 people, tell so and so to compose and sign a deed recording a gift and give it to so-and-so. A statement is of no consequences. These people convey these directions to those witnesses, and witnesses write the deed and give it to the intended recipient. The recipient does not acquire anything. Similarly, if a person tells 2 people, compose and sign a deed recording a gift and give it to so-and-so, they cannot tell a scribe to compose the deed. Instead, they must compose it themselves, as applies with regard to a bill of divorce. 11. When a person writes a deed saying, "I gave such and such a field to so-and-so, I gave it to him, and behold, it is his," the person acquires the field when the deed reaches his hand. When, by contrast, the perspective of the one writes in the deed, "I will give it to him," the intended recipient does not acquire the property, even if witnesses testify With regard to the document, the intended recipient does not acquire the property until the giver tells the witnesses, compose a deed recording a gift and give it to him. Then they should compose the deed and give it to him. The rationale is that the recipient does not acquire the property given to him until a deed recording the gift reaches his hand, until the giver transfers ownership of the property to him via a third party, as explained. 12. When a person says, I gave this field to so-and-so, but the recipient says he did not give it to me, we suspect that perhaps the giver had another person acquire it for him. Different was applied. The giver said, if the giver stated, I composed a deed and gave it to him, and the recipient states he did not compose such a deed, nor did he give it to me. If the recipient of the gift himself makes such a statement, the admission of the principal himself is equivalent to the testimony of 100 witnesses. Therefore, the giver is entitled to receive the produce of the field. If the son, the recipient, is the one who states, you did not give the field to my father, while the giver maintains, I wrote a deed and gave it to him, the produce should be entrusted to a third party until the status of the field became known. 13. When a person thought to have received the gift, claims the object in my possession was not given to me as a gift. Instead, I am watchman for it, or the like. He says, the gift was nullified from the outset, but I did not accept it. I was forced to accept it against my will. I accepted it by mistake, or the like. His claim is accepted. He is required to take his hesses, and the gift is returned to its original owners. 14. If the alleged giver of a gift denies giving it and instead claims you are a watchman over it, I give it to you unwillingly. It is a stolen property that you have, and the person in possession of the disputed article states you gave it to me as a gift. The alleged recipient must report his claim, but with a rabbinic oath. Afterwards, he is under no obligation. Zechia chapter 5. 1. Whenever a person, whether healthy or sick, gives a gift, the gift must be made publicly and conspicuously. If a person tells witnesses, write a deed recording a gift and binding and give it to the intended recipient, his statement is of no consequence, for he is acting subtly in order to take money belonging to others, for he will sell the property after giving the gift. 2. Therefore, whenever a deed recording a gift of land does not state so-and-so, the giver is said to us, sit down in the marketplace and streets and write a deed recording a gift in a public and conspicuous manner, or does not use a similar expression, we suspect that perhaps the gift was given in a hidden manner, therefore the recipient does not acquire it. 3. When a person writes two deeds recording a gift for the same field, the first one hidden and the second one public and conspicuous, the person to whom the latter deed was given acquires it. This applies even if the recording of the first gift does not mention that the gift should be hidden or that it be conspicuous, but just states that a gift should be given to the recipient of the latter document acquires the property. 4. As explained, when a person issues a protest and then gives a gift is nullified, even though a person is not being forced to give the gift against his will. The rationale is that with regard to a gift, we follow solely the intent of the giver. Since the giver revealed his intent that he did not desire to give the gift is nullified. Accordingly, when it is evident that a person did not desire to give a gift, even when he gave the gift in a conspicuous manner, but it was discovered that he had previously given a hidden gift, both gifts are nullified. He gave her nullified. The first because it was given in a hidden manner, and the second because it was obvious that he did not want to give the gift. For the hidden gift that was discovered is considered like a protest for the second gift. 5. An incident occurred regard to a person who desired to marry a woman. She told him, I will not marry you unless you write me a deed giving me all of your property. The man's elder son heard this and objected at being left empty-handed. The man said, the witnesses go and hide and write a document granting him all my property as a gift. Afterwards, she wrote a document granting all his property to his prospective bride, and married her. The instance was brought before the sages, and they ruled the son did not acquire the property, nor did the woman acquire the property. The woman did not acquire the property because the man did not willingly compose the document granting her his property. It is as if he had been acting under duress. 4. By giving the first gift, even though it was nullified because it was hidden, he revealed his intent. Similar laws apply in all analogous situations. Just some marriage advice to me. If a woman tells you that, run away as fast as you can. Okay. 6. The following rules apply when there are two legal documents with the same date, either deeds of sale or deeds recording a gift applying to one field. If it is customary for a person of that locale to record the hour of the day when the document was signed in the document, the person with the document that earlier requires it. If it is not customary for the people of that locale to record the hour in the document, the matter is left to the discretion of the judges. The field is granted to the person whom they feel it is proper to recognize as the owner. 7. When they will apply with regard to a legal document that does not mention a kinyan, but rather the recipient desired to acquire the land through a transfer of the field, through a transfer of this legal document. In such an instance, we do not know who received the legal document first. If, however, both of the legal documents mention a kinyan, one with regard to one with whom a kinyan was made first acquires the property, the witness should be asked about the matter. Similarly, if there were witnesses who know who received the deed recording the gift first, that person acquires the field. 8. The following laws apply when there are two legal documents concerning the transfer of one field to one buyer, and they are dated differently. If one legal document records a sale and the other a gift, we do as follows. When the earlier dated document records a gift and the latter document a sale, the latter document does not nullify the former one, for we assume that the giver wrote the document recording a sale to add his acceptance of responsibility for the field if expropriated by a creditor. This applies even when the document does not mention this responsibility, for the omission of such responsibility is considered to be a scribal error. Similarly, if the earlier document records a sale, the latter document a gift, the recipient requires the field from the date of the first document. We assume the seller had the document regarding a gift composed to strengthen the purchaser's position and to protect him against a possible claim of a neighbor. 9. Different rules apply if both legal documents mention a sale or both mention a gift. If the second document adds any fact enhancing the position of the recipient to the purchaser, the first document is valid. We assume the second was composed only because of the additional point. If no additional points made in the second document nullifies the first, and the first owner's responsibility does not begin until the date mentioned in the second document. For this reason, the person must return all the produce that he consumed until the date mentioned in the second document. If there is an annual levy from the king on that field, the giver or the seller is required to pay that levy until the date mentioned in the second document. Hillchos Zechia Matana, chapter 6. 1. Whenever a gift is given, we assess the intent of the giver. If the situation indicates his ultimate intent, we act according to that intent, even if it is not stated explicitly what is implied. A person's son traveled overseas, and the father heard a report that his son had died. The father then signed over all his property as a public and binding gift to a third party, and afterwards his son returned. The gift is not binding for the situation. It indicates that if the father had known that his son was alive, he would not have signed over all his property to the third party. Therefore, if he retained ownership over any of his property, whether landed property or movable property, the gift is binding. Similarly, if a person assigns all his property to any one of his sons, whether the giver is healthy or on his death, but be assumed that he merely made that son executor of the estate, he receives the same share as the other sons in his estate. It can be presumed that the father's intent was merely that the other brother should listen to that son. This assumption is followed even if the son in question is an infant lying in a cradle. If, however, he retained any of his property, whether landed property, movable property, the son acquires the gift given to him. 3. When does he apply? When he mentioned one son among many sons. If, however, he mentioned one son among many daughters, one daughter among many daughters, or one or another heir among many others, the gift is binding even though he did not retain any property. 4. Similarly, when a person assigns all his property to his wife, whether the husband is healthy or on his death, but be assumed that he merely made his wife the executor for the heirs. This applies even when he confirmed this with a kin. Moreover, this applies regardless of whether the husband's heirs are her descendants, those of another wife, or other relatives. If, however, he retained ownership of any property, if the land property or movable property, his wife acquires everything he assigned to her. 5. When does he apply to a woman who was already married? If, whoever, a person signed all his property to a wife whom he merely consecrated, or to his divorcee, even if he didn't have any property, she's considered as any other person, and the gift is binding. 6. When a person assigns all his property to one of his sons or another person, and that other person requires half the property, the other half is given to all his sons. Son who was assigned the property is appointed executor for the other sons. 7. Similarly, if a person assigns all his property to his wife and another person, the other person acquires half, and the wife is appointed as the executor for the other half. 8. Whenever a woman acquires all the property of her husband as a gift, she forfeits her right to the money to her by virtue of a ksuba. Therefore, the ksuba should be torn. Accordingly, if a promissory note is claimed against her deceased husband's estate, and the entire estate is expropriated to pay the debt that predated the gift, she is left without anything. She does not collect the money due by virtue of a ksuba. The rationale is that we presume that the satisfaction he received upon hearing that her husband assigned all his property to her, the satisfaction she receives upon hearing that her husband assigned all his property to her, is sufficient to cause her to forfeit any other claim she has to his property, with the exception of this gift. 9. Similarly, when a man assigns property to his children, either his sons or his daughters, whether he does so while healthy or while on his deathbed, or he assigns even the slightest amount of landed property to his wife together with him, if she does not protest, she forfeits her right to the money due by virtue of the rationale that the satisfaction she receives from being made partner together with his children is great enough to cause her to forfeit her rights to this property. She may not expropriate anything for the property in the estate at the time of her husband's death. She may, however, collect money due by virtue of ksuba for money accrued by his estate afterwards. 10. If, however, the husband merely assigned movable property to or retained a certain property, or he retained a certain portion of his landed property for himself, her ksuba is still valid. It is an enactment of the Gaon that even if he retains some movable property, she is given the right to collect the money due by virtue of ksuba. The rationale is she will say, I will collect the money due me from what he retained. Since she is allowed to expropriate from what he retained, she is also given the privilege of expropriating for the remainder of the estate. 11. When a person assigns all his property to his children, he assigns a portion of his property to his wife, together with him, and then one of the children dies during his father's life. The woman is allowed to collect money due by virtue of ksuba from the share of the child who died, for she forfeited only her right to collect money due by virtue of her ksuba from the property inherited by the husband's heirs at the time of his death. 12. When a woman desires to marry, she may assign all her property to her son or to another person. If afterwards she marries and becomes divorced, or her husband dies, the gift she gave is nullified, for she was merely attempting to circumvent the laws of inheritance. She assigned the property to another person solely so that her husband would not inherit it. Implicit in this agreement was that if he needed it at any time, it would be returned to her. If she needed it at any time, it would be returned to her. Therefore, if she died during her husband's lifetime, the recipient of the gift inherits it in its entirety. If she retained anything for herself, even movable property, her gift is binding. Even if she is divorced, the property does not refer to her ownership. 13. Whenever a person gives away all his property, when the gift is nullified and the property reverts to the original owner, the recipient of the gift is not required to return the produce that he ate, even if a person explicitly states that he's giving a gift with the intent that it be returned after the duration of so-and-so's life, the recipient is entitled to derive benefit from the fruits produced by the gift, as we have explained. 14. The following was applied when a person sends articles from overseas to his household and instructs, give these to my children. They should be given to both his sons and his daughters. The gifts that are appropriate for the sons, e.g. books or weapons, should be given to the sons. Those that are appropriate for the daughters, e.g. colored silk garments and golden bracelets, should be given to the daughter. If they are appropriate for both sons and daughters, they are taken by the sons. Similarly, apply when a person sends articles to his home without any instructions. If there are utensils that are appropriate for his daughters, to be taken with the daughters. If it is logical to assume that he sent the gifts for them. If he does not have daughters, or his daughters are married, they may be taken by the wives of his sons, for it is logical to assume that he sent them for them. 15. When a person has celebrated the marriage of his eldest son to a virgin maiden in a home, the son acquires the home. This applies when this is the first time the son is marrying the father did not marry off another son before him, and the father did not leave any property of his own in the home designated for the son. This ruling resembles a halacha instituted without a reason. The sage came to the decision out of their assessment of a person's attitude, feeling that because of his great happiness and love, he decided to transfer the house to him. This is indicated by the fact that he did not leave any of his own property in the home. For this reason, if he left anything of his own, even a small cruse, the son does not acquire the home. That's cruse, C-R-U-S-E. If the father designated for the wedding a house and household utensils, even though he left a utensil in the home belonging to himself, or he kept a storeroom or the like in that home, the son acquires the household utensils intentionally designated. He does not, however, acquire the house. 16, if he designated both a house and a loft for his son. If he acquires the house but does not acquire the loft. Similarly, if he designated both the house and a porch, he acquires the house but not the porch. If the house contained two apartments, one behind the other, the son acquires only the one in which he was married. 17, with regard to marriages, we have already explained that a special indulgence is granted when a couple is engaged, and the father of the son and father of the bride make a commitment saying, how much will you give to your son? So and so much. And how much will you give to your daughter? So and so much. If afterwards the groom consecrates the bride, the couple acquire what the parents promised by virtue of their statements alone. Nevertheless, the transfer of property brought about by this consecration does not take effect until the time of the couple's marriage, for the intent that the promise was that the property be given to the couple when married. Also, for the transfer to be effective, the articles that the person promised must exist within his domain. For a person may not transfer articles that does not as yet exist. As we have explained, these promises may not be written down, so that a commitment would have the power of a legal document. Therefore, if such a record was made, it is not considered to be a legal document that would give the couple the power to expropriate the property if sold to others. 18, when a man consecrates a woman, even if he consecrates her by giving her 1,000 denarii, whether she retracts, he dies, or she dies, the money or article given to effect the consecration never needs to be returned. Instead, it's considered to be an outright gift, which need not be returned. 19, if the consecration, this is for people who say maybe after all the dates, you should get your money back if it doesn't work out. 19, if the consecration was made erroneously, the money given for that purpose must be returned. 20, when a man consecrates his sister, the money he gives her is a gift. The rationale is that every man knows the consecration of one's close relatives is not valid. The person is not making an error. We therefore assume that he made up his mind to give her the money as a gift. 21, when a person sends a betrothal gift to his intended bride while she is in her father-in-law's home, whether significant or insignificant, decides whether he partook of a betrothal feast there or not, whether she died, or he retracted, all the engagement gifts should be returned with the exception of food and drink. 22, similar principles apply with regard to garments of minor value that the prospective groom sent his prospective bride to wear while she is living in her father's home. If she uses them, they become worn or lost, they need not be returned. If, however, they are still intact, everything should be returned. They may be expropriated in court, for it is well known that he sent them only as a complimentary gesture. 23, if by contrast the woman retracts, everything must be returned, even the food and drink. For the latter, however, she is required only to pay a lesser amount. The Geonim have agreed that the food and drink were worth 6 zuz. She should pay 4 if she retracts 4. He gave her these gifts only with the understanding that she would not retract. 24. My masters ruled that when the local custom is that when engagement is announced, every prospective groom makes a feast and hosts all of his friends and distributes funds to his helpers, attendants, and the like. If he follows the popular custom and she retracts, she should pay the entire amount, for she caused him a financial loss, and whoever caused money belonging to a colleague to be lost must reimburse him. This applies provided he has witnesses to how much he spent, for we do not allow him the option of taking an oath and collecting the sum he claims.